Hey there, patrons. Got a double dose of dumb coming your way via Deep Fat Fried and via writer, director, producer, and everything else extraordinaire, Roger Corman.
Yeah, both of these movies that we're going to take a look at in the double feature today are, as of the time of us recording this anyway, available in full on YouTube. So, real easy for anybody who wants to watch these first. They're also mercifully short films.
Yeah.
I think The Terror is just over an hour.
It's about an hour and 20.
And the
Attack of the Crab People's like, it's barely an hour. It's like an hour and 3 minutes or something.
I can't speak for Attack of the Crab Monsters or whatever, but that one is, I know The Terror is actually in the public domain.
Yeah, The Terror is a public domain film as well. So even if you can't find it on YouTube, it should be out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah. We watched both these movies. I could tell you right now, the first thing that really captures my eye, I was talking to Paul about it a little bit when we were we were sitting there just now. This poster is pretty goddamn misleading. You see all of these attractive women trapped in this fucking web, Boris Karloff's face in the background. He's got this weird creepy bowl cut going on that he doesn't even have in the movie. There's one woman. Well, there's two women, but one's an old hag, and then there's only one attractive woman
here.
And none of these depictions really look much like the woman in the movie, played by Sandra Knight, I guess. There is over here, if you guys can see this little tiny portion here.
Little tiny scene over on the left.
That actually is a scene in the movie. You can't really even tell what it is unless you've seen the movie, but you can recognize it. It's two dudes fighting in a graveyard. That does happen. So
yep, there is a scene that resembles that.
And I guess there is this castle as well.
That's true.
So it's almost like they took some unrelated imagery and then just really squeezed two little tiny things from the movie onto either side of Boris Karloff's face. And, there you go. That's about it.
You've got one misleading fucking poster for sure.
And yeah, The Terror.
The Terror. What a name.
Very generic title. This movie, I don't know that it has much. I guess it has to do with terror. There's supposedly scary imagery and stuff in it, but The Terror, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and there are actually a number of other movies and properties that go by the name The Terror too. There's
because it's so generic, right?
It's like a 2016 movie called The Terror, and then there's like a 2018 TV series called The Terror.
Yeah, it's because it's such a generic thing to call. I mean, especially it's like almost calling it like a horror movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was also released under a number of different names. The Terror, of course, The Haunting, The Castle of Terror. And this was released a variety of ways. It was actually released, I believe, as a double feature, and also was screened kind of like the late night monster movies back in the day as well.
Oh yeah, It definitely has that vibe. If you've never seen a movie like this, then you might not know what to expect. But if you have seen other kind of schlocky horror movies from this era, you might have a general idea of what you're in for. You might notice
most schlock is. One of the things that I think is shared between most schlock movies is the lack of a budget.
Right.
It seems to be now, not always, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but a low budget seems to be one of the things that drives the creations of these types of movies. It's you want to maximize your profit and minimize your expenditure. And you can see that throughout these movies in a lot of different ways, for sure.
Oh, yeah. And Roger Corman, some directors are really good at hiding the fact that it's a low-budget movie. Roger Corman, not so much.
I don't think he even really cared that much about it.
Right. It was just like, as long as you can get asses in seats on the promise of the movie, you pretty much got it going on. Here's the title screen here.
Yeah. So Corman, he made this movie in the midst of a cycle of Edgar Allan Poe adaptations. and he considers it an honorary member of that cycle, even though it's not based on any Edgar Allan Poe story.
Yeah. Well, the thing that those other movies, like, he's like probably talking about, like, the Pit and the Pendulum. A lot of the, like, I think it was a lot of the Hammer pictures at the time were kind of delving
I pulled up a
into.
list actually of his Poe cycle, an IMDb list.
Oh, did we get the poster twice? Or is this stuff out of order? No. Okay.
Out of order as usual, TJ. Out of order.
It just wants to alternate between these two pictures. I don't know what the deal is with that.
Damn, TJ, you give me a new fucking way to criticize you. Out of order.
Yeah,
TJ
what have you done, TJ?
I don't know what happened. So here's Vincent Price.
Vincent Price
holding a little tiny gun.
Yeah, he was a huge star and a huge driver of the horror genre. Was this actor here, Vincent Price? A lot of people going to be familiar with him, and he was in most of Roger Corman's Edgar Allan Poe movies, which I guess we can take a look at a list of here.
Yeah, the Corman Poe cycle.
So if you scroll down, there's just a list. It lists some kind of in order of release.
So yeah, House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum. These are all coming out in the early 60s here. Premature Burial, Tales of Terror, The Raven. How do you make a movie of The Raven? You just can't. The Haunted Palace, The Mask of the Red Death, The Tomb of Lygia. I think that's how that's pronounced. And then, of course, here we have The Terror.
Yep, The Terror, and you can see there it says
honorable mention, not actually based on a work of Poe's.
Right.
But it does kind of create, I guess, at least the atmosphere of some of these other movies. You see, it actually is the lowest rated IMDb score wise of the Edgar Allan Poe kind of 60s low budget horror kind of pictures.
This is honestly the king of low budget films. And I know we're going to talk about it more. So I researched it. I'm sure you guys did too. Basically, they were shooting the film The Raven, which Paul mentioned before, with Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, and Jack Nicholson, Boris Karloff. Basically, Roger Corman rented out a castle, and he had 2 extra days, and he basically got Boris Karloff and Nicholson to agree to be in a movie without really a script or any sort of real discernible direction. And it's like, we got the castle for 2 more days.
He kind of press ganged them into being into the movie. Things were different back in the day. Like, you, as an actor, you signed a contract for a certain number of days.
Right.
It was like, you have my services as an actor for 40 days or whatever it is. And Corman liked to take advantage of that. He would sign these actors for the time that he thought it was going to take him to shoot a movie. And then at the end of them, when he had a little time left over, in this case, like Scotty said, 2 or 3 days left on the contract and left on the rental of the place, he was just like, well, we're doing another movie. Like, it wasn't even really a question. It was just like, yeah, Boris Karloff, like, I own you for 3 more days. I own Jack Nicholson for 3 more days. I own access to this castle property for 3 more days.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's shoot some stuff. Jack, and that's really how this movie was made. And it actually kind of, I don't know. We'll talk about it. We're almost there. But I did want to show everybody the castle here first.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I don't know why it.
Yeah, TJ's having problems today.
I don't know what it's doing.
TJ is out of order.
It's supposed to just go to the next tab, but it won't fucking do it.
Out of order.
So I don't know what the deal is with that.
Out of order. So if you've seen schlock horror movies from the 50s and 60s, you've seen this castle like 90,000 times.
Yes.
It's a piece of stock footage that's used in a lot of super low budget movies. And a lot of these movies just, a lot of this evil goes on in the same fucking castle. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. This is the castle.
Yep.
And it's got the lightning behind it, all that stuff.
The previous Poe pictures had ended with the castle that they took place in being destroyed by fire. And Corman's crew apparently had come to look forward to Fire Day when they got to burn everything.
Right.
But with this one, Corman decided to change the formula. A brilliant man.
Yes.
And have the castle destroyed by a flood instead.
Yeah, he's like, no, we're doing Water Day this time.
Yeah. We're doing the same exact thing I do in most of my movies, where at the end the castle gets destroyed. But you know what? I ain't derivative. It's gonna be a flood this time.
Yeah, this time it's gonna be water. And someone was like, "Wow, Roger, you done it again, bud. You done it again." Here's Jack Nicholson as an older gentleman.
Of course. So I had to kind of cover these movies differently in terms of structuring the conversation about them. When we did the Fanatic, I did a whole big chunk on the plot, and we're not doing that for this movie. And one of the reasons is because I couldn't get the words of Jack Nicholson out of my mind. Another quick little fact before we move on to that. Jack was he actually directed parts of this movie, including the climactic scene. He was a fresh face in Hollywood, just getting his start, and he noticed that this movie had like 4 second unit directors. Like it was just a different dude every day doing the shooting.
Right.
And so he was like, well, fuck it. Like, let me just ask Roger if I can, take a day and direct some of this shit. And he did. The climactic scene in this movie, the last few scenes were all directed by Jack Nicholson, which I think is interesting. But these are the words that kind of drove me to research these things a little different. Jack was being interviewed for the documentary Corman's World, Exploits of a Hollywood Rebel, which I've seen, which is actually really good. He insists that the finished movie literally just doesn't have a cohesive plot line.
I agree with that.
He recounts the scene where his character throws Stefan, played by Dick Miller, against a wall and threatens him, to which the Stefan character attempts to explain where the story is through ham-fisted and probably last-minute dialogue selection.
Yeah, this movie is there's a definitive pattern that works throughout this movie, where you see a scene that makes no sense, and then you see a scene where the characters explain what happened in the previous scene. Like That probably happens like 12 times in the movie. Like
it definitely happens.
It's a lot of it is a lot of the movie is told not through like any sort of visual storytelling, but through mountains of exposition, basically.
Yeah. And the exposition doesn't really add up. It doesn't create a cohesive narrative. It's just stuff happens and then is explained via conversation, and then stuff happens and is explained via conversation. And that a plot does not make.
No, it doesn't.
So rather than going through plot points of this movie, I figured we'll talk about the characters that are in it. Because plot or no, it is a character-driven film. You can't. I don't think there's any denying that.
Right.
If there is no plot, then really the interest that you're going to get watching this is going to be from the different characters.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I figured we'd spend most of our time kind of mulling over when it comes to this movie.
So yeah, Frankenstein's in it.
Yeah, Frankenstein's in it. No,
Boris Karloff, actually.
No, this is Boris Karloff. A lot of people are familiar with him. Some people maybe not. Really super iconic horror actor in the 50s and late 40s and 60s. His career was waning at this point. He was definitely in the twilight of his career when this movie was made. But certainly, like, everybody's seen this picture. Everybody's seen him done up as Frankenstein's monster. He played a number of iconic movie monster roles. I think he also played the Mummy, which I pulled a picture of, I'm sure. Yeah. Another super iconic shot from the movie. He had a very piercing gaze, and I think that's really what carried his performance more than anything. I mean, you can see it represented on the Terror's poster. Misleading or no, the most fucking...
Yeah, they really make sure you're like, look at those eyes. Those Boris Karloff eyes.
He totally classed up the movie. I actually was researching this. I pulled a quote from him actually talking about making this movie, and this is what he said. He said, Corman had the sketchiest outline of a story. I read it and begged him not to do it. He said, "That's all right, Boris. I know what I'm going to do. I want you for 2 days on this." I was in every shot, of course. Sometimes I was just walking through, and then I would change my jacket and walk back, which you see a lot in the film. He nearly killed me on the last day. He had me in a tank of cold water for about 2 hours. After he got me in the can, he suspended operations, went off and directed 2 or 3 other operations to get the money, I suppose. ... The sets were so magnificent. As they were being pulled down around our ears, Roger was dashing around with me and the camera, 2 steps ahead of the wreckers. It was very funny.
So, yeah, I mean, and there's a number of quotes. Jack Nicholson talks about the slapdash nature of this movie too.
It's not surprising. I mean, like, none of this, if you see the final result, would come as a shock.
Oh yeah, you have to watch to get a really a good sense of it, and you can see it because a lot of scenes are recycled, or it's just like, okay, like, you know, the Baron will walk down the steps, and he'll go and pull his secret candle to go down to his little, you know, the crypt, and he'll walk back.
I guess we're going over characters, but I do actually have some notes on the plot of this movie.
Oh no, it's fine. I mean, I figured we'd talk about it, but
yeah, yeah, why bother? But yeah, sure, go ahead.
No, I'll wait till we're done with going over these characters.
I mean, we might come by some of the plot points just by discussing the characters.
Oh, okay. Well, then let me just maybe subvert things for a minute. It does kind of concern Boris Karloff and the nature of how it was filmed, because there's actually a lot of footage that's reused multiple times in the movie, such as the opening scene, which, by the way, I guess, are we just supposed to not consider the opening scene of this movie canon? Because it doesn't lead anywhere and it doesn't amount to anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's Boris Karloff.
Question.
Boris Karloff. It shows the castle, and then it shows Boris Karloff, and he goes in like this little. He follows like this trail of blood, and then he opens a door, and out of the door comes like the lamest jump scare you've ever seen in your life, like this like decrepit like skeleton thing,
mummified corpse,
right?
Or
and then it's like, oh, the terror, it's like the worst fucking jump scare I've ever probably seen in a movie. It's
the opening credits, man.
It's super lame. But that corpse does not. It's never referenced again. It's never like, and actually that footage is later. That exact footage of him walking through the castle is later reused to just no effect whatsoever. Like, it totally leads to a different sequence of events.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that whole thing is just not supposed to be canon.
Maybe.
Or my other thing,
I have an idea. I mean, maybe it's the body of the real Baron that's
right?
Down
well,
there.
I'm sure we'll get into that weird twist a little later. I mean, I don't know.
We'll try. I mean, we can try. I mean, here at the beginning, I did want to mention that most of the people in this movie are credited as multiple different characters or have multiple different names that they're credited to.
Right. That's so weird.
And in the case of Boris Karloff here, he plays Baron Victor Frederick von Lepp, and he's also credited as Eric.
Right.
Now, this is a sign of a movie that didn't know what the fuck it was. So, literally, 3 or 4 of the main characters in this movie have multiple identities that they're concealing.
Right.
So that whatever the convoluted plot of this thing can come together.
All right. So, I mean, I guess we can. Do you want to try to explain the Eric thing?
I mean, we can try.
The movie can't explain it, so I don't know how much success we're gonna have. But
yeah, I mean, it really, and honestly, a big twist like this in a normal movie might matter. In this movie, it really doesn't, because it just comes out of nowhere.
It's literally, it might, like, the twist of this movie is pretty much the equivalent as if like Boris Karloff is like, I'm not really Boris Karloff, I am a pineapple. It's about that level of like, yeah, okay, I guess I didn't see that coming, but
it's one of those things where it's like, and then this happens, and then this happens. It's like they want to keep throwing you for a loop, but you're not really invested because the story doesn't make much sense up until that point. You're kind of like, all right, that happened, cool.
So anyway, I don't even know. Well, maybe we should get into like the old woman and some other characters before we try to really explain it.
If you want to do the plot, we have to start at the beginning. Basically, Jack Nicholson plays a soldier. He basically is like washed up on the beach or lost or whatever. It's kind of unclear, but he just says, "Oh, I'm thirsty. I'm lost," and he meets a girl.
Right.
He follows the girl. He's kind of led by circumstances to a castle because he's infatuated with this girl. He gets to the castle. He finds the Baron here living there. He sees the ghost a few more times. He learns some of the Baron's backstory and learns that the girl is likely the Baron's tragically slain young wife, the ghost of that, or at least. But then kind of comes to find out that the Baron is not the Baron, but he's actually this other dude who killed the Baron and was in love with the girl, I guess.
Yeah.
If what's being said doesn't make sense, it's because it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
The Baron went off to war. This Eric dude moved in on the chick who's now the ghost or possessed by the demon thing. And then basically when the Baron comes back, he kills her. So she becomes she becomes a spirit, and then Eric kills the Baron.
Right. But then Eric thinks he's the Baron. And then his butler goes along with it for no discernible reason. And then for 20 years, Eric has thought he was the Baron, even though he was actually the lover who killed the Baron.
And also mixed into all of this is the Baron's mother, who is actually like 20 years younger than him in this movie.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that's explained.
Oh, that's another weird thing. Is like it really felt like this role of the Baron was supposed to be someone younger. But they just like, well, we got Boris Karloff, and because they reference all this stuff happening 20 years ago, and he does not look like he was doing any of this shit 20 years ago, because it's like kind of whatever. Oh, it's really hard to wrap your mind around.
His mom is involved, but his mom doesn't know that he's her son. She thinks he's the Baron who killed her son.
Right.
So she's out for vengeance against the man that she thinks killed her son, but it turns out that man is her son, who's assumed the identity of the other man. It's ridiculous.
It's really ridiculous.
It really is. And you can tell it came about by just literally shooting a bunch of nonsense and then just brainstorming, like, how do we connect this piece to this piece? Oh, okay. Yeah. We got this dialogue. We got this scene. We'll throw that in there.
Here's a twist for him.
We'll shoot some quick exposition to explain it to the people. Yeah, that works. Okay.
So, I have a little bit of explanation on that. This is something I found from Combustible Celluloid. This guy did a review of it, but he actually gets into the backstory. He says, Corman called the screenwriters and ordered them to find some castle scenes, any castle scenes, and they would fill in the rest later. So they frantically shot for the 2 days in the castle. And they basically talk about the actor. Said, Corman took the footage back to New World and couldn't make heads or tails of it. The more they worked it over, the less the movie made sense. But Corman never gave up once he had money invested. So
right. So there was gonna be a movie. Like something was gonna happen with this. And that is actually a fact that I pulled, but I kind of skipped over. Most of this movie was shot in about 4 days.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But the finished movie, which was largely improvised, required 9 months to slap together.
Oh my God.
So it wasn't like,
the
turnaround on the shooting was incredibly fast and slapdash.
But it took 9 months to figure out some way to make it into a movie.
Right. It got backburnered for a while, and slowly but surely Roger Corman and his team were able to piece together. I'm not going to say a narrative because there really isn't one, but they're able to piece together a watchable film, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, you said at the beginning that you enjoyed this. So I mean,
I enjoyed both of these movies, honestly.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something.
It may sound like we're overly pooping on them, but we're just being honest. Like, if you're coming to this movie for a plot that's going to grab you by the balls and never let you go, it's not going to happen. It's just not here. The plot's not here.
The narrative is really confusing. Here's a young Nicholson here.
Yep. So this is one of Jack Nicholson's earlier films. It's his second film with Boris Karloff. He was actually in The Raven with Boris Karloff just prior to the shooting of this film.
Yeah, here he is in the actual role. It is kind of weird to see him so young, honestly, because this was kind of well before he really became a name actor.
He definitely wasn't commanding, the respect in Hollywood that he is now at this point in his career. But it really is odd to see super duper young, like mid-20s Nicholson.
Oh, yeah, I mean? It's crazy. And, he's I don't want to say he's good because he's really not, but he's I don't know. I don't know if it's just because it's Jack Nicholson, but there is a weird sort of captivation to his performance. Most of the dialogue that he's given to recite sounds incredibly stilted.
It weirdly sounds like it was either written on the fly or improvised at the last minute with a general idea of what was supposed to be. I don't know why I get that feeling.
Yeah, somehow that's kind of it felt like someone wrote it. It didn't really feel like it was improv because there was like a weird stiltedness to everything. Like if it was totally improv, I feel like it would have maybe had some sort of But then again, I don't know what kind of training background Jack Nicholson had. So maybe he had some kind of idea of like the kind of dialogue that he was going to deliver or something, and just had to kind of, fly with whatever. But it really kind of had this feel to me of like stuff that had been like jotted down on a cocktail napkin and passed to Nicholson, 10 minutes before he was supposed to deliver the lines.
You got to say this, buddy. His performance is all over the place, though. And not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, it's a campy movie to begin with. You're not going into this going, this is, this is the best acting you've ever seen.
This is high oct.
I mean, because like there's one scene where he busts in and he's all like ready gung ho. He's like this brash, like, I heard you talking to her, and there's no one there. And it's all like, and the Baron's like, how dare you? You must leave, impotent whelp. But he's like, that would be for the best. Goodbye. So it's like he's either like super respectful or he's like this brash asshole character. Like he just oscillates back and forth.
Oh,
and it's kind of fun.
One thing about his character, what is even his name? I guess Andre Duvalier. I don't know how to pronounce the French shit.
Right.
Anyway, he's supposed to be playing a Frenchman. He doesn't even attempt a French accent in any way, shape, or form. But one thing that's kind of crazy about his character is that he literally is given no motivation other than just some kind of vague curiosity about this hot girl he saw on the beach. He's just like, yeah, I want to bang that chick.
He wants to bang.
And I mean, he's even present under really mysterious circumstances too, because he's like a cavalryman, a lieutenant, and what was it, Andre Duvalier. He's a cavalryman in the French army, but he somehow gets separated from his
regiment,
unit, and ends up alone out, in this area. But it's never really explained how that happens or why or what he's doing to try and rectify that.
He doesn't seem to be doing anything to rectify it. He's just kind of trying to fucking find this bitch because he wants
to fuck the ghost.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly, that's what this movie is about.
The only motive they really give him is he's got the hots for this ghost, and he'll do anything to get that to slay that ghost pussy. So,
yep.
I actually noticed one similarity between these two movies that it will not spoil them or whatever. They both have rock slides in them.
Yeah, and they both begin with characters on a beach as well.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. You got a point.
There is by the way, I don't know if there's an opportune moment to really kind of shove this observation in, but one thing that really drove me nuts watching this movie is the soundtrack will never shut up for even a second. And it's all just like this really screeching, horrible fucking stock music.
Yeah, orchestra music.
Yeah, it's clearly none of it was composed for this movie, obviously, because who would compose something for this movie? So it's just like you get this like almost without fucking stopping for the entire hour and 20-minute runtime of the movie. There's like this, and it almost never stops. It is the most ear-piercing, horrible soundtrack for a motion picture probably I've ever seen. If there's anything that really was driving me up the wall watching these movies, it was the soundtrack for The Terror.
Well, believe it or not, and I don't mean to contradict you.
Oh, okay.
The score of this movie was done specifically for this movie.
Well, they need to fire Roger Corman needs to go back in time and fire the person who wrote it because it's horrible. It's hideous.
Roger Corman had we've already talked about some of his cost-cutting measures and how he would, and he definitely had a way with getting the soundtrack done too. He would hire these orchestras in the off season,
right,
and have them do one movie. And just similarly to the actors and people that worked on the film, he had them for a certain amount of days. So he would drive them to get through the one movie first and then throw them a bunch of new music and be like, oh yeah, just do this. So yeah, this movie was scored, but the score in it is very, very bad. It's grating, and there's very few moments of actual silence in this movie.
Yeah. And then there's so little silence that I actually remember specifically like a scene where there was silence. Like Jack Nicholson, there's like a bang at this door where it's like, oh my God, and it's like there's he's like, unlock this door, but the lock is on his side. So it's like it doesn't even make sense. But then there's like the soundtrack goes quiet for a second, and it was like, oh, merciful fucking silence. And then he kind of just wanders around the room for a minute, and then he looks at a picture And then as soon as he looks at the picture, the fucking soundtrack kicks back in. He's like, it's like, oh God, okay. Back to this, I guess. So, ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking terrible. But as far as like character traits and shit, what we've talked about is really it. He's a dude that is infatuated with fucking a ghost. And he, you know, pretty early in this movie, he comes to realize that is indeed what's going on. She is indeed a ghost.
Right. And it doesn't dissuade him from wanting to fuck her in the least. I mean, it's like he knows she's a ghost, but never like fully realizes it, I guess, because
or he thinks he can de-ghostify her with love.
Yeah, he's like, come with me, you know, we'll run away together. It's like she's a fucking ghost, dumbass.
It's hard to believe the character actually truly believes that, because in a number of scenes he says like, she's real, you're real flesh and blood. I mean, if he really believed she was a ghost, I mean, he wouldn't. I don't think he would keep trying to pursue her. I think in his mind,
once again, it's almost like you have to treat you almost have to have like a superposition of two different character arcs, because the movie is so inconsistently written that even though we see scenes where he knows she's a ghost, he also at the same time doesn't know she's a ghost.
Well, remember he's being like when he's chasing her like the one time, and after he meets Gustav, we haven't talked about that. The guy with like the fucked up voice, like he's following this path, and it's like, no, don't go. It's like, oh, and he throws like a decent sized rock, and it sinks. He's like, quicksand. She was trying to kill me, but yet he's still like, I'm still going after her. This thing I was following almost killed me, but it's okay. I'll keep following.
I mean, Gustav is the only character we're not going to talk about today in any great length, because he's barely in the movie. He doesn't, and he absolutely does nothing in the movie.
Yeah, he's pretty much he's entirely useless in the movie. So Gustav, the only thing that really needs to mention about him, he's like a quasi-mute. He's not completely mute, but he can only like whisper. He doesn't actually contribute anything to the plot. It's kind of unclear why he's even there. But there is a scene where a bird comes and rips his eyeballs out, and then he falls off a cliff. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So honorable mention, I guess. He got his eyes ripped out by a hawk.
Yep. Honorable mention for the hawk eye gouge.
TJ, as you mentioned earlier, I actually have the movie played up on YouTube. I want to play people some of the score for a second here so they can kind of hear that.
Oh yeah, give him a taste.
So this is pretty much the scene you were talking about. He's in the room.
All right, unlock this door. You hear me? Unlock this door. I'm going to shoot through the door.
So then it's kind of subtle.
Yeah, that music right there, that never lets up for an hour and 20 minutes. It never lets up. Like, it sounds okay in isolation. Like, okay, yeah, like I get it. It's building a mood in this one little scene or whatever. But when you fucking have to deal with that just screeching at you for an hour and 20 minutes, it'll fucking wear on your goddamn last nerve.
Oh, it really will, for sure.
Yeah, and that's just a constant drum beat throughout this fucking movie. You just hear it.
I have some orphan observations that I think I'm just going to have to like kind of shove at the end of this, because there's no.
I mean, you can throw them in wherever.
All right, well here, let me just read my notes. Can we just do that? Can I just go through like some of my notes and explain what the fuck I'm talking about? So I already mentioned the jump scare. I already mentioned the horrible screeching soundtrack. So at one point, when Jack Nicholson's character follows the girl up to the Baron's castle, the Baron's like, look at this portrait, and then he proceeds to show Jack Nicholson a portrait, and is like, is this the girl you saw? And he's like, whoa, it is. And the portrait looks nothing like the fucking girl.
No.
It looks fuck all like her. It looks nothing goddamn like her. I already mentioned the part where he demands that a door be unlocked, but the lock is clearly visible on his side. There's a scene where Jack Nicholson goes to the Baron and is like, Baron, you need to tell me what really happened here. And then the Baron just like, easy as pie, just confesses to this murder. Like, yeah, when I came back for the war, I found my wife in bed with another man, so I killed them both. You know? Anyway, that's what I did. And it's just like, oh, there's like no, like, he doesn't even try to hide it. He's just like, okay, well, you asked, so.
But Nicholson's character doesn't really have it's not like, oh, it's like, all right, There's no
Oh
real
yeah,
sort of
there's no like, oh, you're a monster. It's just like, okay, yeah, you killed him, gotcha. It's understandable. All the bird, like, here's a weird one. All the bird sounds in this movie are wrong. There's like this.
That's true.
There's this hawk, and it makes like, there's like scenes where it's like chirping like a fucking, I don't even know, like a fucking songbird, like. And there's other scenes where it like makes like fucking it even makes noises that I don't even think are bird noises at certain points.
It's like, rah!
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
It's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be a hawk, right?
Yeah, but you do know why that is, and it makes sense with Roger Corman movies. Whatever that needs to work or how it needs to work, that's how it's going to work. So if the hawk needs to sound like a fucking cute little Tweety bird, that's what it's going to sound like.
And the hawk has the same name as the girl, or at least one of the forms of the girl.
It's implied that the girl turns into the hawk,
right? But then there's
explained.
certain parts where you see them at the same time. So it doesn't make any sense. You're like, is the girl the hawk? But then you see the girl and the hawk at the same time, and you're like, okay, maybe not. But then other times, whatever. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, remember, he's at the witch's hut, and then he follows the bird, and then he sees the girl. So it's like it's strongly implied. Oh, the hawk changed into the girl. But then later on, like you said, they're both present. So
the woman says that the hawk's name is Helene and everything. So yeah. Speaking of which, this is Sandra Knight. And she plays the role of Helene and also the role of Ghost of Ilsa, the Baroness von Lepp.
Right.
So another dual role.
Yeah, because they couldn't decide what her name should be. So she's Ilsa and Helene.
And also Nicholson's actual wife during the filming of this movie.
Oh, really?
True.
Crazy.
Yes, indeed.
One thing I actually pulled about it, another behind-the-scenes story, Nicholson's wife, Sandra Knight, featured here, who plays the ghost, apparently grew more and more pregnant as the weeks rolled on. In one scene, Nicholson had to carry her up a flight of stairs, and you can see him struggling.
Damn.
Yeah, so she's big and pregnant. But she's also, has a pretty accomplished schlock horror career. She was in a lot of these Corman-esque movies. That is her depicted on the poster for Frankenstein's Daughter.
It reaches from the grave to relive the horror, the terror, more destructive, more terrifying Frankenstein's Daughter.
And it's true of a lot of these actors, too, that are in this movie. A lot of them did a lot of television work at this time, too. And she was in just a fuck ton of shows. So she had a pretty illustrious career. She was around for quite a bit. But another...
one of the original Scream queens, yeah.
Yeah. Another very confusing, very schizophrenic character performance where, she's one character for about the first quarter of the movie, and then it's insinuated that she's this other character, and it kind of swaps back and forth.
Without rhyme or reason.
Yeah, the needs of the scene dictate whether she's Ilsa or Helene, or whether they're both the same thing, or whether Helene is a fucking bird that turns into a human or a ghost, or... Your guess is as good as mine. I've watched this movie now twice just to do the research of this, and I still have no fucking clue.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. If you put a gun to my head and asked me to explain the character arc of this character, you'd just shoot me because I can't do it.
This is what she's credited as in the movie. Helene Ilsa, the shape-shifting demon of the witch who poses as the Baron's deceased wife.
Right. Which...
So wait a minute. So she's not actually the ghost of Ilsa. She's just a shape-shifting demon that's posing as Ilsa.
The story, as far as I can tell, heavily implies that she indeed is the ghost.
Okay,
but who the fuck knows? I mean, I don't know.
Because Scotty just said she was credited as a shape-shifting demon that is taking the form of the ghost, but is not actually the ghost.
I think the argument is made that she is that because at the very end, when she lures him down to the crypt, basically to kill him, it's like implied that Eric's mother, the witch, was in league with Satan and basically got this demon to trick Eric to basically kill himself so he would go to hell.
But at the same time, we see scenes of her saying like, oh, I want to be with Eric again and all this stuff. Like she remembers Eric and wants to be with Eric, but at the same time, she doesn't recognize that the Baron is really Eric.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't
whatever.
know, dude.
I don't know.
It's another example of just how absurdly all over the place this movie is. One of the good things I will say about this movie is there are some shots that are really cool and moody, like this one here.
Yeah, one of the you said, hey, it's not going to be the characters, it's not going to be the plot that engages you, other than in the way that you're just sitting there trying to figure out what the fuck the plot is. That's kind of actually engaging. It's going to be the characters. Well, for me, it wasn't. It was neither. The thing that actually kind of worked in this movie for me was just this, like, the atmosphere. Because honestly, it for a movie as slipshod and rushed as it is, it does actually do a pretty good job at establishing sort of this, like, I don't know, gothic atmosphere. And it kind of does have that feel of, like, the other fucking movies in the, like, Corman kind of Poe, series. I've only caught little glimpses of those here and there, but, like, this kind of does capture the vibe that I associate with that. So, yeah. I'll give it that. I'll give it that it has some fucking atmosphere to it.
Sure.
It definitely does, yeah.
And it's got a vibe. Like, it's almost like a kind of a shame that this movie was such a rushed piece of garbage, because it feels like it actually could have been a pretty decent flick if there was, like, some real time put into it, and not just like, oh shit, we got a castle for a few more days, let's make a movie.
Yeah. Although, there's definitely some signs of that. I mean, the confusing plot and the multiple character arcs that don't add up.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
sure.
if you'd actually got some writers, like, set them to work on this, and, like, yeah, let's actually come up with, like, a story that makes sense and stuff. You could have had a pretty decent flick.
Wait, to back to your point that you made earlier about how, like, the portrait disappears, I pretty much believe in the movie when the portrait disappears, it's because they realize that portrait looks nothing like the fucking actress in the movie. So it's like, oh, it's gone now.
Maybe
don't scrutinize it too much.
It's totally fucking possible that you're correct with that.
Here's a weird one. This scene was so weird. I don't know what the hell was going on here. This is a weird scene where her face seems more in focus than her body. And
yeah,
is there, like, I don't know if there's an explanation for that, or
it's another one of the things that leads me to believe as the viewer that she's supposed to be a ghost.
Right.
Because she comes back like this at the very end when the Baron / Eric is trying to kill himself, basically, because he's heartbroken. He wants to be with Helene. So he goes down in the crypt where her body is and opens it up, and we actually get to see her corpse.
Oh, by the way, her corpse looks like it's been dead for about a week.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like, it does not, well, maybe a month. Like, she'd be like bones and, like, maybe if, like, some really withered, rotted flesh at that point. But, like, the preservation of her corpse, like, she looks like she's been dead like a couple weeks, maybe. After, and she's supposed to be 20 years dead, and she looks fucking practically brand new. But that's neither here nor there.
And kind of inexplicably, she comes back and chastises Eric for what he's done, and kind of, like, tries to fill in a plot hole or two, and then he dies, in the ensuing flood. This dude, I immediately recognized him, and I really didn't know much about him, but this is Dick Miller. He's been in a ton of shit. He's like one of those actors that never really played a whole lot of leading roles.
Right, like one of the classic, character actors, know their face but don't know their name kind of guys.
Right, and he's hard to recognize. This is him, at least a more recent picture of him. He's clearly, he's an old man. But some of the roles that you've seen Dick Miller in, I pulled some pictures from. Might jog your memory a little bit. This is from Demon Knight.
Oh God, yeah. Dick Miller is cool. I mean, he was in Gremlins, right?
Yeah, I pulled a picture of him from Gremlins.
He was also in Chopping Mall as a janitor that gets electrocuted by one of the robots.
Not shocking.
Yeah, he was the gun shop guy in Terminator.
Yeah, he's the pawn shop owner in the original Terminator. Has a pretty cool scene with Arnold. Pretty memorable scene in the movie.
Yeah, here he is in Gremlins here.
Yeah, he plays the dad in both Gremlins movies.
Well, he's not the dad for the main family. He's the neighbor
Right. All
who's
right.
kind of like a
Yeah.
conspiracy nut and shit. And he's one of these like kind of like constantly grumbling guys. It's like, fucking government, fucking taxes, fucking this, fucking that. And then of course the gremlins show up. He's like,
Right.
So it's pretty cool.
But a good actor and a dude that has had a long fucking career. So it was cool to see him in this movie and to like recognize,
I honestly did not even recognize him.
But he plays Stefan, the butler, in this movie, and really the guy that's responsible ultimately for the Baron being able to get away with this double identity shit. Because he was the actual Baron's hand servant, and then when Eric kills the Baron and the girl, he just kind of and then has these delusions that he's now the Baron. He just kind of goes along with it. He's just like, oh yeah,
for no discernible reason, by the way. Just like, yeah, okay.
But he's the key to all of the plot lines in this movie. He's the one character that knows the truth.
Right, and he's the guy who's like more than anybody else, like the heaviest load of expository dialogue is definitely placed on his shoulders. Like, hey, we need you to make this make sense. He tries. He doesn't. He tries as hard as he can. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't at one point posit that Stefan actually killed the Baron or something.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he actually admits that he killed the Baron. So maybe he liked Eric better than the Baron or something, or I don't know.
Who the fuck knows? It literally. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't actually serve the forwarding of the plot at all.
No,
he's just the guy that was there when it all went down, so that when shit gets real confusing, he can have a conversation with one of the characters and go, "No, this is the way it is."
Yeah, here's how it happened. Don't you worry.
She's a ghost. See,
I got the skinny. I got the 411. I know what's going on here.
Pretty much.
But in most of his scenes, he's just attending to the Baron. He's kind of in the background when the Baron talks to Lieutenant Duvalier, and just kind of a brooding presence until the very end when he finally kind of reveals everything that's going on. But there's nothing that insinuates like why he's kept this secret for so long.
No, they never give us any
remained
hint.
so loyal to this false Baron, or why he hasn't gone for help, or why he hasn't. I mean, it's just all these whys hang over the character, and it's just like, well, because then there would have been nobody here to know the truth.
Right.
That's the answer.
Because movie, basically.
Like, if this dude was a normal human being who was like, fuck this guy killed, or whatever it is that went down. Because I do remember what you're saying, that it's inferred that he killed the girl, but the Baron doesn't believe that. The Baron believes he did it. I don't, you know what I mean? This is why I didn't want to get too heavy into the discussion of the plot. Because you get about 3 or 4 sentences in to that discussion, and then something makes no sense.
It just breaks down. But I mean, like, you got to talk about this when it comes to this movie, because the plot really is so incoherent that you really kind of have to do it. Like, there's like the vaguest insinuation of a story, like a narrative, but it's when you try to get down into the nitty gritty and the particulars, you just end up in this like, well, maybe this happened, but then no, because then Let's
put it this way. There's plot holes in a lot of movies. This is like the plot holes. Instead of a plot hole, it's like the plot Grand Canyon.
This movie is this movie is Swiss cheese, right? It's fucking.
It just exists in a plot hole.
Yeah,
it is a plot hole. This movie is a plot hole.
It's like the Ouroboros of a plot hole that's like eating itself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I guess the last character we're going to cover is another. She's actually triple billed in this movie.
Oh my god.
She is Katrina / the witch / Eric's mother.
Right.
Which
she
slowly but surely revealed through horrible exposition throughout the movie. She's kind of like the antagonist, I guess. It's implied that she is behind all of the horrible, creepy things going on at the Baron's
she's
mansion.
The villain. She's like trying to get revenge on the Baron, who she thinks killed her son, but then it's later revealed that he actually is her son. So
she's trying to get revenge on her son. Good job.
How she didn't recognize that, we'll never know.
There's some cool scenes with her. I like the scene where what's his name? Stefan goes to her little fucking shack in the woods and sees her doing some, like, ooh, I'm doing some witch shit. And they have that. They have a really cool shower. They're spinning this like lantern or something.
Yeah,
which I kind of like. They have like a little potion. Then
Yeah.
I like her death scene too, where she gets struck by lightning. And
Oh, yeah.
just fire.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson tries to pull her into the
She enters
catacombs, which is like holy consecrated ground. She's like, "No, I can't enter holy ground. My pact with Satan or whatever." And then, and then of course, like a literal lightning strike fucking hits her because God is like, "Not on my watch, bitch." And then she just combusts into flames. It was pretty cool.
She's got a satisfying ending. Probably the only satisfying thing about this character. But Dorothy Newman was in a lot of shit too. I actually thought it was worth just kind of scrolling through her filmography and credits and shit.
143 credits here.
I mean, she had a really long, productive, and illustrious career, mostly as a TV series actress.
Sure, worked up through the 90s and stuff. You see some Tales from the Crypt stuff in the 80s. In Mr. Belvedere in 1985. A lot of TV work.
Mostly TV work.
Mostly, yeah. But, this is like the kind of fucking acting career that a lot of people... This isn't necessarily what most people get into acting to achieve, but this is really like... This is a pretty I mean, like, when you can get that kind of, like, good character role kind of shit where you just, you land roles consistently and, just you're a character
for
actor
3
and
decades.
stuff for, like, yeah. I mean, because, like, her career... Let's see, when does her career start? It starts in...
The 40s.
The fucking 40s.
So 4 decades, pretty much.
Like, so she would... No, I mean, like, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, because she was even her last role was in 91. So that's 6 decades spanning career in the fucking entertainment
That's
industry.
fucking insane.
I mean, and you never heard of her name or anything, but I mean, like, she fucking worked. She was a fucking worker, and she fucking has a long, illustrious fucking career. I don't know if it's illustrious, but it's long,
I mean, she worked her whole career doing presumably what she enjoyed doing.
Right.
Oh, looks like we lost Scotty.
Oh, shit. Well,
Scotty down.
The show must go on.
So, in this movie, though, she, she's another one of these characters that you want to matter, and you can tell that she maybe does matter to some of the weird plot developments in the movie, but you're not really left with a huge feeling that she ever really mattered in the movie.
There is a sense that, like, that she's pulling the strings, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's so unclear what the strings are or what's even going on that it's kind of hard to, even care about her Machiavellian sort of scheming.
She's pulling the strings in the most bungled caper ever. She's trying to kill her own son.
Right. Because
to avenge her son.
Yeah. I will avenge my son, Eric. Oh, no, I killed. I mean, it's like, they're going for like, oh, the tragic irony, but of course, the movie, if the movie had been able to have a real script or something, then maybe it would have been something they could have developed a little further. But, in this movie, it's just kind of like, I don't know. Who knows what the fuck is going on?
Just discussing these primary characters doesn't really give you an idea what's going on in this movie. And as you can probably tell from what we've been talking about so far.
Yeah, there is no there's no figuring out what's going on in this movie.
There's no explaining it. I mean, we gave you kind of a brief overview of some of the plot points in the movie, but watching this movie, you'll see that every one of those is undermined by the movie itself.
Right. Every time you feel like you have some grasp of what the hell's going on, something else will happen that totally destroys your notion of what was going on.
Yes.
It's like I literally think that you would have to. It would be like it'd be hard work to craft a movie that makes less sense than this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's because
you'd really have to go out of your way to make it not make sense. And this movie was the inverse. They really tried hard to make what they had make sense.
I guess if you just give people some locations and some actors and a few days to make a movie and just like go, yeah, I guess that you probably would end up with something like this because that's basically what happened.
Yeah, I think you'd probably end up with exactly this.
Yeah, it's really hard. That being said, I mean, I thought she was kind of an interesting character. I like the whole witch angle. I like the fact that she's like controlling a ghost or a demon or whatever, and then there's this bird that maybe also is the ghost/demon.
I mean, you just liked her because she had a pact with Satan. Let's be honest.
Right. I mean, that's definitely cool. I mean, like, look, a character who makes a pact with Satan is pretty awesome. I mean,
right.
That's just you're always going to win with that.
So that's basically what I pulled as far as plot and characters. I did pull a number of pictures of her, just for us to swap through.
So let's talk about
we've
the
come
ending,
now
yeah.
to the section where I want to try and set aside the good.
Yeah.
If there is any in these movies, because we've spent a lot of the time talking about how schlocky and horrible and nonsensical this film is, but what was good?
Well, I paid it a few compliments. I mean, look, yeah, like I said, despite the slipshod rush nature of the movie, there was a good atmosphere. As rushed as it is and as how bad the dialogue is, like, you still definitely feel like, whoa, Jack Nicholson still, even in light of that, has a screen presence. Now, like I said, I don't know how much of that is reputational, but I feel like you do kind of get a sense of, like, this really is kind of a star, even in some shit like this. Like, it's like I didn't really meet, but I was on a flight with like Lawrence Fishburne, and I kind of observed him from like afar in like a stalkery sort of way. And like, there's just like, he had a natural charisma, people recognize him. He was super nice. And it's just like, you kind of like, he had this larger than life kind of bombastic personality. And you kind of like got a sense that even if you didn't know who he was, you'd still kind of like be drawn to him in some way. Like, he had that gravitas. And I feel like you really kind of feel that Jack Nicholson and Boris Karloff in this movie. Even though they're, Boris Karloff is way past his prime in this movie and Jack Nicholson is yet to come into his prime in this movie, you kind of still feel that power of like them as like people, as actors, as performers. They do more with this movie than this movie probably has a right to. Like,
yeah, I mean, Jack Nicholson especially, I think, in this movie, because like I said, Boris Karloff, he's great, but he's on his way out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, so I'm saying, he's past his prime for sure.
But Nicholson in this movie really chews the scenery, even though he's not written very well. He's not given very much interesting dialogue to deliver. His facial expressions, the way he carries himself, and just his look, I think, draws the eye, and it chews the scenery, and it makes this movie actually go by as a watchable thing rather than just a horrible, muddled nonsense burger.
He does a lot with not just a little, but practically nothing. I mean, so you really got to give tremendous props to Nicholson, I think, for really carrying as much as you can carry a movie that in and of itself probably does not have any right to be as watchable as it is.
Sure.
If we're honest. I think Boris Karloff did a great job too. I mean, despite being like well past his prime, like, you definitely could still feel, I think, that like, energy of like the star, the celebrity, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
I mean, you can tell the old bastard loved it. You can tell.
Right. There was like a real sense of, like, this is he's having a blast.
He's loving every minute of it. He loves being this, moody, angsty horror character. You can just tell he didn't really care that there was no script. He was just happy to be doing what he was doing. And that really shines in his performance for sure.
And there's the cool, I mean, the castle itself is cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool set. I mean, it looks neat. It's got a fucking vibe to it. It feels like a character in and of itself. I mean, so I could see why they wanted to to use as much of their time there as they possibly could and get as much footage going as they possibly could. Despite the convoluted, I mean, like, here's another thing that's maybe unintentionally good about the movie. Like, literally when I was sitting there watching the film and that big plot twist happened where it's like, Eric is the Baron. Right. Like, like, I was so dumbfounded by the stupidity of that I kind of was enjoying myself, just like, because me and my wife were sitting there like, what? What? What?
Yeah.
Because it's like the revelation came in a series of statements, each of which was followed by us going, "What?"
Yep.
and it was kind of fun to just have a movie reach down to that level of incredulity,
Oh yeah. And it was just all in service of tying together the loose ends of these shots and making it seem like there was something like a cohesive plot that happened. The ending of this movie is fucking hardcore. Like, say what you want about the rest of the movie. The very ending scene of this movie, I felt it was worth walking people through. Because you don't see movies end like this pretty much ever. So in the very end of the movie, we're looking at a scene from it now. Lieutenant Duvalier has saved Ilsa or Helene or the demon, I guess, or whatever, from her torture by, overseeing the death of the Baron and the old witch woman. It's implied that she's free from her curse now. And so the very final scene of this movie is Jack Nicholson leans in, gives her a kiss.
Yeah.
Right. Then he pulls back, and she's got chocolate sauce all over her face.
Yeah.
Okay. Now just follow along with me here.
Yeah.
Then we get a cut of Jack looking
No.
like he wants to puke.
Oh God, no.
Looking like he's about to puke. Then a few more shots of Helene melting.
More chocolate face.
Turning more into chocolate. Of course, Jack, we go back to him, still looks like he wants to puke. Still needs to vomit. Then, eventually we're left with
Diarrhea face.
this skull with a bunch of caramel Fifth Avenue bars melted over it. And in case you're wondering, yes, this is the final shot of the film.
The end.
It's like, so this whole time has been, really, if you had to call this anything, it's a love story. It's
Right.
about a dude that's pursuing this woman, and he saves her from the curse. And once he actually succeeds in saving her from the curse, he gets one kiss, and then she literally turns into a melted milk dud, and the end comes up on the screen. And you're like, oh.
I mean,
Okay.
it's a great look. I mean, like,
Life. It's true to life.
yeah, he does everything he can. Like the whole, like, remember the driving force behind whatever the fuck happened in this movie was Jack Nicholson wants to bang this ghost or this demon or whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
And as soon as it seems like he might be finally about to lay the pipe, this happens.
Yeah, he goes through all the trouble of figuring out the plot and assisting the ghost in escaping the people that have her held in thrall. And then at the very end, she just literally melts and turns into a puddle of liquid shit. And that's it. Like, there's no, there's no descending action. There's no, like, it
Her
just
fucking
happens.
skull becomes huge too. Her skull becomes like fucking way bigger than it before, and the fucking wig they put on is just terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like it's probably like Andre the Giant's skull or something. It's
Yeah.
like big, lumpy, misshapen skull.
Yeah, it looks like it's gigantic compared to like let's just compare this skull to like her little face here. How does that become that? You know what I mean?
I don't know, man.
Oh.
Yeah. Can I just give her like a brown makeup in the first shot where it's like she's becoming a corpse? Okay, now, oh look, oh she's a corpse. Ah, like, all right, well,
No.
There is a scene, and I didn't pull a screenshot of it, but it probably was supposed to tie in with the plot in some way, where she's melting and Lieutenant Duvalier hears a screech, and he looks over his shoulder, and there's a hawk
Right.
flying across the moon. So maybe what happened here is that she was the hawk all along.
Right.
And now that vengeance has been exacted on the people that were, fucking with her, the hawk is free.
Yeah,
But
I guess.
that still leaves poor fucking Jack Nicholson with just a puddle of goo to fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can't fuck a hawk, can't fuck a puddle of goo.
You can fuck a puddle of goo,
That's
and
true.
I like to think that after the credits roll,
Yeah.
that's exactly what Lieutenant Duvalier does.
You want your descending action? There's your fucking descending action. Fucking Jack Nicholson's ass bobbing up and down in a pile of fucking chocolate goo. Anyway,
Guys, there's an even better theory. There's an even better theory to that. Maybe that's what he wanted all along.
you know, he doesn't look too happy about
fuck
it.
a corpse.
He doesn't seem like that's what he wanted. Seems like he wanted to fuck the ghost. But whatever.
Well, I like to think
know
that
what? He got over it
he
now.
finally came to his senses and just fucked it.
Yeah, good for him.
Dude, that's
All right, so we seem to have lost Scotty at this point. Hopefully, he'll be able to rejoin us at some point in the near future.
That's okay, because Scotty didn't have nothing to say about this
Scotty.
shit anyway now.
We lost the valuable insight Scotty would bring to this. Duh, there was crabs in it.
Come on. That's just mean, TJ.
That was a little mean. No, I really wish Scotty could. I'm sure Scotty probably did some research into this, knowing him. So it's kind of sucks that he's not here to
it sucks.
enjoy. But anyway, well, the show must go on. So here we see like a behind the scenes picture, I guess. The dude
From Attack of the Crab People, yeah.
What is the dude do? Is that dude like what's the guy on the fucking right doing? Is he just pretending that's his dick? Is there some fucking function to it?
There's a line attached to the end of that stick.
That's moving the crab arms.
Right.
I gotcha. To whatever limited extent they move. I get it.
Yeah. And if you haven't noticed already, in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the Hollywood sign in the background.
Right. So they clearly just drove out to the hills or the mountains surrounding Los Angeles and just fucking threw this together. This one, it's a shorter movie, but I swear it feels a little longer than the previous one. At least to me. Now, I had a lot of trouble enjoying this film. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know that you said you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked it.
I
had fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of fun in moments, but man, I don't know. I think that maybe if there was a little bit more crab monster in it, because you do get the crab monster pretty early on in the movie, but well, I guess we'll get into the specifics a little bit.
Sure.
Down the line, but
so I kind of covered this the opposite way in terms of just the discussion prompt that I covered the terror.
Right.
Because the terror really doesn't have a plot, but it had some characters.
Right, but this one actually
This movie has some. This movie doesn't really have characters in it, but it has a plot.
Yeah, so you can. It's like when it comes to Roger Corman, it's like plot, characters, pick one.
Right.
Just like you can have one, not so much the other. This poster once again massively misleading. There's not even a blonde in this movie, so we just.
I mean, the crab monster does look pretty close to what it looks like in the movie.
It's not the same. I guess I can't really say what color it is because it's a black and white. In the movie, this it's just a black and white movie. But the girl clearly is not a blonde. I don't know what the Ghostbusters are doing in the corner there. It's like they don't have the black Ghostbuster though. So Winston's not there.
It was the 50s
because this is 1950. But I'm surprised to see Ray, Egon, and Peter up there. Visible. It's like I think
that is strange.
I'm
not sure what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like when I see these guys, they legit looks like the fucking Ghostbusters to me. So
no, it does. It really does. I hadn't noticed before.
You can even kind of make out what I think kind of looks like the proton packs and stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I can make out which one is which pretty much.
Yeah, like okay, so the one on
the far left one, our left,
is Ray.
Ray, yeah,
and then that's Egon in the middle. Yeah, and Peter on the right. You can even we can make out which distinctive Ghostbusters, even though this movie obviously predates Ghostbusters by a good bit.
And if you squint, Winston is actually there. He's just so black he blends into the background.
Oh wow, yeah, you're right.
He's there.
Yeah, he's there. He's there.
I see him.
I see him too. You know what? Now that I squint, I see him. Absolutely. So from the depths of the sea, a tidal wave of terror. That's the tagline. Not the greatest tagline ever, but
Yeah, I'm not really sure that this thing comes from the depths of the sea, and I'm definitely sure that there's really no terror involved.
Yeah, there's not a whiff of terror anywhere to be found.
I mean, there's some spooky ideas. We'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, like once again. Okay, well, we'll get into it, I guess. So you have some facts here about the budget and stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I couldn't really find a lot of budget information about the first one because you can tell he just kind of took money from different projects and shit.
Yeah, it was thrown together last minute as like, oh, well, might as well shoot a little bonus movie. But
right.
this one actually
was a
planned.
full production, and it was made for about $70,000 in 1954, which is about $650 million today, a little more.
650,000.
Or sorry, 650,000.
Yeah, it was 650 million.
Jesus,
this
man,
movie
inflation.
This movie would look incredible. It does not.
Yeah, no, it's about just a little over $500,000, which even today is.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a movie for that these days. I mean,
a middling indie film might have a budget of $500,000.
Right. If you try to do a monster movie with that, you're gonna have to be either really talented or whatever. If you're trying to make a giant crab movie on that budget, you're probably gonna have a rough time. But you could put a guy in a fucking creepy suit or something.
So the movie opens up very ceremoniously with a quote from the Bible.
Yeah, that's true. It does.
It's Genesis 6:7, and the quote that's read is, "And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them." I spent about 10 seconds thinking about what does that mean in the context of this movie, and then I realized that I was chasing a ghost.
Right.
It sounds ostentatious, it sounds important, and ergo, it was put at the beginning of this movie.
I think it's just meant to lend this movie some loftiness, I guess. Like, oh yeah, this is a real film and stuff. It's kind of like the scene in Pulp Fiction where Jules is like, I just thought that was some cold shit to say to a motherfucker before I wasted him or whatever the fuck.
Right.
I think that Roger Corman's just like, yeah, find the spooky Bible verse so we can kind of like,
yeah,
kind of make this movie sound like it's got gravitas. And then what proceeds is an hour and 3 minutes of utter silliness that no one would associate with that Bible quote in a million years.
Unintentional silliness, mostly too.
Yes, yeah,
honestly.
I think this was before Roger Corman kind of embraced the schlocky kind of side of things. I think that this was kind of a little bit more like, I'm seriously trying to make a movie here. I could be wrong on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
So one of the cool things about this movie is that it doesn't really take long for a crab monster to show up. That is true. You get your first glimpse of a crab monster about 4 minutes in. Now, unfortunately, you don't see it again for like 22 minutes after that. But
and you get your first like beheading at the same time.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool scene, especially for 1954. A guy falls into the water. You see kind of a glimpse of the crab. And they pull his body out, and he no longer has his head attached. So it's like, okay, whoa, this movie starts off with a fucking, decapitation. That's pretty cool. That gets your attention, especially in an old movie like this. Because, I've watched a lot of horror movies from the 50s and stuff, and there wasn't a whole lot of decapitations going on.
No. So I liked that little moment. But, earlier I said this movie doesn't have any characters, and, people that haven't watched it are probably looking at this going like, well, what are you talking about? I mean, here's a shot of a bunch.
I see characters. There's
a bunch of characters here. Yes, there are people in this movie, and they play characters, but none of them are really consequential in any way. Who they are, what they do is all interchangeable. Any one of these characters could have taken on the attributes of any one of these other characters, and the names could have been swapped around, and it really would have done nothing to this movie.
Yeah. So these are a team of scientists.
Yeah.
Who are also there with some military people. And they are there to study the effects of radiation fallout from some nuclear testing, which is always a great setup for a monster movie, if we're honest.
Right, and I mean a pretty popular one in the 50s too.
Right, because the nuclear technology is this new thing, and obviously, borrowing from other monster movies. There was, I think Godzilla, of course, was a nuclear test experiment kind of results. The ants in them, I believe, were nuclear beings.
Yeah.
Oh, that's retarded. I just came in. I was waiting for you, basically bored on my end. 'Cause my connection's working, and then I guess you guys are already doing the thing.
Well, I tried to call you and get in touch with you to see if you wanted us to just go.
'cause
Or...
You weren't. Your ghost was sitting in the room.
We haven't gotten too far into it anyway. We're still at the beginning of this. We were just talking about the opening of this movie, and how there's not really any characters in it. There's just kind of interchangeable actors that just kind of exist as scenery. Really as fodder for the crab monsters, if we're honest.
They have that one scene where it's all like, I think the guy's name is Hank, and he's all like, he basically just gives the rundown of like why you're supposed to care. Biologists, nuclear physicists.
Yeah, there is that scene early on where like one of these dudes is standing with a couple of other dudes, and he's just pointing at people, going, "And this person does this. This person is a marine biologist, and this
Right.
person is a geologist."
Which is
and that's
never
really what their characters are. They're not people that actually want things. They're biologists and geologists and scientists.
It's never a great sign in a movie when you have the characters introduced in that giant block of exposition. Like, here's Rex Banner. It's like, whatever the fuck.
Like, I knew I was gonna like the movie when the first scene when the guy like falls off the raft or whatever. Like, they're coming into the island, the atoll, and gets decapitated. And they're like, huh, oh well, like that's normal. In the shallows, you often get decapitated. No big deal. Let's just keep proceeding on.
And then the plane that they all came in on, too, explodes for no clear reason.
Yeah, just kind of inexplicably explodes in midair,
I
trapping them on this island.
I went back to watch to see, like, okay, is there like a crab claw that shoots up and grabs the plane or anything? No. I watched the scene in slow motion. The plane is flying just fine, and then for no discernible reason that's ever explained anywhere in the entire runtime of the movie, the plane just explodes, thus trapping them on the island where, of course, we know they're going to encounter a race of giant nuclear fallout crab monsters.
Yeah, and as far as I can tell, there's only 2 of these monsters
Yes.
on the island.
There's a pair of them, but there's the hint that there could be more, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's possible. So I kind of just pulled a bunch of pictures here just to kind of drive home this character thing. So are there characters in this movie? Yes, there are characters in this movie. Do they do things? Do the characters do things? Yeah. Yeah, they do things. They get up to stuff.
Do they have explicit motives for doing them?
Yeah. Do they have conversations? Yeah.
Yeah,
they do. They have conversations. You can kind of just go through these pictures if you want, TJ. Just kind of showing some people that indeed there are people, they talk.
Like they're talking.
Is there scuba diving in this movie? You bet
Yeah.
your fucking sweet ass there's scuba diving in this movie.
Is there some fat 50s jiggly ass booty that you can gawk at in this scene? Yeah, there is.
There indeed is.
I love that scene.
By the way, this is clearly shot in a fucking aquarium tank at a fucking like aquarium somewhere.
It was a place called Marineland that existed at the time. Yeah.
Scotty even knows where it happened. I was just
I mean, it's clearly like these scuba scenes are clearly filmed in an aquarium of some kind. And it's just really, really super duper obvious that they're just kind of diving into some public aquarium somewhere.
Yeah.
And swimming around. And they really get nothing done either by diving.
No, those scenes are totally pointless, other than to maybe show off the ingenue's body.
Right. Is there science in this movie? I mean,
hell yeah, there's science out the ass.
There's some serious techno babble going on.
Does it make a lick of sense? No.
Yeah.
Does it have
any of it?
Does it have any foundation?
Yeah. The characters, the conversations, the things that they do, the science, the scuba diving, does any of it matter? Even one bit?
Nope.
No.
No, it does not.
No, it doesn't. This is what matters in the movie. The movie, after all, is not called The Plight of the Scientists, okay? It's called Attack of the Crab Monsters. This movie is, if anything, just a venue for feeding a bunch of stupid people to this crab monster for most of its runtime.
Yeah, that's basically what it's about. Well, after fucking about 30 minutes of watching these bland, boring characters yammer on at each other in techno babble and gibberish, because there is, even though there is that big initial kill and you do see an early glimpse of the crab monster, it pretty much vanishes for like 22, 23 minutes of the movie after that, before finally reemerging and getting the plot going. And it's that portion of the movie is easily the most painful and unwatchable portion of the movie. Once the crab monster shows up, it does kind of kick into high gear. Not because the crab monster is some kind of amazing effect or anything, but I think he's like a charmingly bad effect.
Yeah, for sure. It does look like that some trash bags were used in making him, and he's very cobbled together looking beast.
Yeah, he kind of looks like a parade float level kind of special effect, you know?
Yeah, for sure. In fact, if you saw a parade float that was supposed to have a crab on it that looked like this, you'd probably think it was a pretty lame parade float.
You probably would.
So I don't know if you guys picked it up during the movie, because I certainly didn't, but the crab, at least one of them, has a name. I don't remember him saying it.
Yeah, I don't ever remember the crab giving a name.
But his name is Hular, the giant crab.
Good to know.
And I really felt like, in order to understand this movie, the best thing that we could do, instead of trying to recount the plot, instead of talking about the characters that don't matter, you try and understand like what this crab thing was about, what kind of powers it has, what are these people up against, how does it function, what kind of mind does it have. And so I tried to glean as much of that from the plot as I could so that we could kind of discuss the implications of it.
Oh, yeah.
So they come to kind of understand what this thing is, or at least they give some kind of hackneyed scientific explanation. At one point in the movie, they manage to wound one of them and its claw falls off, I guess. And they take the claw back and they do some scientific tests on the claw. And one of the science guys pipes up and says that, you know, the radiation poisoning from all the nuclear tests in the area has basically caused a freak of nature, which, you know, whatever. So far, so standard, right?
Yeah.
We've got a nuclear beast that just got bigger than it's supposed to be.
Right. But they go a little further with it, though.
You know, honestly, I wouldn't shock me. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these monster movies, there's really nothing behind the monster. It's just a big gangly freak. But not true in the case of this movie. Hular is way more complex than just being a giant murderous crab.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm going to try and explain this to you because this is exactly how it's explained in the film. And you tell me, I mean, I'm not a science or chemistry guy, but you guys tell me if this makes a lick of fucking sense whatsoever. It's explained that since electricity is the flow of free electrons, the crab is composed of free atoms. So the crab is like a liquid, but with a permanent shape, which do with that scientific analysis what you will. It sounds like gobbledygook to me, but maybe not. I don't know.
It's basically an excuse to make him supposedly impervious to like bullets and stuff.
Right.
And
grenades.
They basically, I love there's a great scene in the movie where they're like, you know, where they like build up its invincibility and stuff, and then they just reach up and like just grab its claw off its body like it's nothing, like it's impervious to bullets, it can't be stopped. Anyway, I'm gonna just grab this claw off real quick, you know, just like it just comes off like nothing, and it was like, okay, well, doesn't seem too impervious there.
Remember how they killed the first one? They throw a bunch of grenades. The grenades themselves actually don't kill it. It's like there's a cave in and it falls on its brain, killing it. But they're like, even if we remove this, it would come back to life. I think the science thing is basically saying that they're like beings of like pure energy. Like it wasn't just that they just get nuked and become like these super like large crabs.
Yeah, I mean they're pure energy and they're supposed to be liquid, but they can also beat your ass.
Right.
You know, we see multiple people get grabbed and punched by the crab. So it doesn't really the rules don't seem to make sense, because even the cave-in rule doesn't seem to make sense. It's like bullets pass through it, explosions pass through it, rock falling from the ceiling crushes its brain.
Right. Well, I think what they were saying.
How did that happen?
I think what they were saying was that the rock displaced where its brain was supposed to be. That's why they were saying if they remove the rock, it would probably come back to life, because it's like The rock went through the rock went through it like a bullet would, but because it stayed lodged there.
So why did condensed free atom energy choose to become a giant gangly slow crab? Why is it a crab?
Why not?
Because
I mean, yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Because I don't know. I would imagine that maybe it started off as a crab, and then as it grew, it became the free atoms. I don't know, dude.
I love that, but what I love even more is the fact of when not only does the crab, kill you, but it consumes you. I actually pulled the thing. Once they were men, now they're land crabs.
Yeah, like there's like a weird sort of like collective within the crab of like all the brains that it consumes, like the personalities and the memories and all that of the people it's consumed, like still live within it, but now serve
it. Just has to eat your brain. That's what it's implied. It's like it doesn't really, the rest of you doesn't matter, but when it eats your brain, it's able to absorb your memories.
Yeah,
which is another one of its powers. Once again, a power that is completely and utterly not explained at all. And doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
They do explain it. They said this is like the brain is all electrical impulses, so then it absorbs the electrical impulses and recreates your neural network within itself, or some shit like that.
What? Yeah, I mean, basically, it's not explained.
It's not explained.
Yeah. I just love how the effect they use is they basically have to use all the same actors again. They get to lure people out. Like the first one's like they're sitting in bed. It's like the woman, the ingenue, and like some other dude. I forget his name. It's like, McLean, it's me, McLean. Of course, the dialogue is totally stilted. Like, I'm here. Come to me. Come to me.
So that's another thing we have to talk about is that Hular can communicate.
Yes.
But he can only speak through any metal.
Yes.
Which I guessed as condensed energy. No, it doesn't. I was actually going to try and make an excuse that sounded like it made sense, but it really doesn't.
He can only speak through metal, and he can only speak in the voices and personalities of the brains that he has consumed.
Well, I guess we don't know that for sure.
Well, we
we don't know for sure that he can't, but that's definitely part of his.
Well,
tactics.
we never hear him be like, I am Hular, or whatever the crab behind. Like we only ever hear him talk in the voices of the people he's killed. So I would assume that's all he can do. But I guess we don't have an explicit thing that says that he doesn't have his own voice or personality.
So he speaks through two objects in the film. He speaks through an ashtray. That's
here he is
first
analyzing the crab here.
Yep.
Yeah, there's the ashtray that he talks through.
So the first time that he communicates with our crew, he does so in the voice of one of the guys that he's killed through an ashtray. And they're all just kind of okay with this. Very closely on the heels of this, and about a scene and a half, maybe 2 scenes later, he talks to them through a gun that's just sitting on the table. They're all sitting around and having a conversation.
And then
all
the
of a
gun
sudden
starts chatting with
talking.
him. Yeah. Hey, it's me, Gunny.
And the only explanation for this phenomenon that we get from the movie at all, other than just explaining that it happens, like he can speak through any metal, but Hular himself gives really the only attempt at an explanation for this power when he says, they ask him like, how do you do this? And he says, I transmit, so I must be received.
Makes sense to me.
Which,
case
okay.
closed. Case closed.
All right, Hular.
That kind of sums up the movie. I transmit,
so I must be received.
I must be received.
Yeah, it would have been a good tagline for this.
Here he is emerging from the sea.
Yep, Hular crawling out of the sea.
And Hular's pissed at this point, dude.
Yeah, he is not pleased.
So he has some tactics. He's not just a rampaging beast that's hunting people down like the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park or, whatever, the swamp thing or the creature from the Black Lagoon. He's got some tactics. He's a work smarter, not harder type.
Oh yeah. He's definitely got some skills to pay the bills.
So as we said, he can, speak in the voice of people that have been dead, and he really uses this to his advantage by just really trying to lure characters to him.
Right.
He doesn't do a very good job of convincing people that it's safe to do so, but he tries.
Yeah, it's his plan.
Come to the pit. Yeah, at some point there's a cave in and there's this pit, And one of the foolishly, one of the scientists is like, I'm going to go down into the pit for no discernible reason. Of course, he falls to his death and is, of course, consumed by Hular.
Right.
And that's one of the tactics we're talking about of the island. So obviously the island's pretty big, and Hular is pretty slow moving. And also there's a dead giveaway. There's a clicking noise.
Well, yeah. I mean, something this big and covered in plates, it's going to make some noise when it's around. So it can't really sneak up on you very well.
He's got to make the island smaller. So he's doing this through cave-ins. He's having rock slides occur, and they're tunneling underneath the island to make the island fall into the sea.
So maybe that's why we don't see Hular too much, because at the beginning of this movie, we get a kind of some broad sweeping shots of this quote unquote island they're shooting on. And it's a big ass place. By the end of it, it's reduced to like, you know, a quarter acre of land. So the crab has basically been just destroying the island and chucking it into the sea in order to give his prey a smaller and smaller patch of space to run away on.
Which is not a bad idea.
No, but it does seem like it would take a fuck ton of effort.
Yeah, well, you know, he's really strong. I don't know.
I guess so. So yeah, he tries to lure them to him. He is slowly destroying the island. There's also this weird little subplot that may have something to do with Hular. So these two characters at some point when they're running around the island trying to figure things out, find oil. They're like, look, there's oil. We have to trace the source.
That was such a weird plot line.
Yeah, and they end up tracing the source of this oil seepage to a cave network, which Hular is in. So I don't know if Hular has something to do with the oil or if he is nourished by it. But it seems like it's kind of dropped into the movie that like there's oil under this island and we've got to get it, and the crab is trying to keep us from it. And it's like, why? Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
there's
never
like,
explained.
it's never even remotely addressed. They just like it's like they're in the middle of like them being chased by this crab monster. They just find this oil. It's like, oh shit, oil. Where are we gonna? We need to fucking find the source of this oil. We can be rich.
The conversation
Damn
between
it.
these two guys is so stilted and lame.
Yeah.
One of them is like, look, there's two sources of oil. And he's like, we should trace them. And he's like, you want to find the source of this oil? And he's like, I feel we must. And it's like,
Why?
no, there's a giant mutant fucking psychic liquid crab chasing you. Like, come back later with some missiles and something and get this oil.
Yeah, now is not the time to fucking fantasize about this oil wealth or whatever the hell's going on.
It's a plot contrivance to get them back into the tunnels, which I don't know why the fuck anyone would go into the tunnels, as Paul pointed out, but they still do it.
Like the last time they went down there, a couple of them died, but let's chase the oil back into the fucking cave network. It just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I just threw that in there because I don't know. I mean, maybe you guys picked up on something with the oil and
I
the
did
crab,
not. I thought it was totally out of nowhere and made no sense.
I think there's nothing to it besides lowering them as kill bait.
And what's the ultimate goal of Hular? I think is really the last thing that we need to talk about, because he's eating people, he's absorbing them, he's sucking their brains out, he's using them against each other psychologically, he's destroying this whole island.
World domination, dude.
So
it's gotta be world domination.
During a conversation, one of the characters, Carl, says the crab is like a rattlesnake. It can be heard long before it can be seen. He knows this better than we do. That is why he is trying to reduce this island to a small corner from which we cannot escape. Hular gives one line of dialogue in this that seems to belie what his ultimate plan is. And that is, Hular says, we will rest in the caves and plan our assault upon the world of men.
Yes.
So Hular is about, like, he's about taking over the fucking world. This is not like, he's not defending this island. He's not just trying to, you know what I mean? He's got plans. Crab people. Yep.
Absolutely. God
So
damn it.
that is what drives him, why he goes about things the way he does, how he came about as a being. I mean, I guess that's up to you.
So I have some notes here that I got into some of them when we were just talking, but I'm gonna just kind of go through some of the other ones. So there's the pit Scotty referenced a moment ago that they said this pit wasn't here 20 minutes ago. Must have been a cave-in. And they show the pit, and not only does it show clear signs of erosion,
Yeah.
the long process of erosion, but it literally has like foliage all along the side. Like, man, them plants worked quick to just fucking immediately set up real estate in that thing that only just caved in 20 minutes ago.
You have to look too. There's violent earthquakes going on the island, and it's like, should we climb? And then so initially when they discovered, should we climb down? And they're like, no, it's too dangerous. There could be a cave in. Then the next scene is pretty much like, let's go down.
Oh man, there's so much of that. There's a scene where the ground rumbles and the main actress falls down in like the least, like, it's the worst someone fall down scene you've ever seen. She like falls down and like hits her head on something, but she's like clearly afraid to actually get hurt or whatever. So she like kind of like falls in this very unconvincing like way that any competent director probably would be like, okay, take two, but not Roger Corman. He's just like, yep, looks good. There's a scene where a guy gets lured to the pit in the middle of the night, and then the crab like literally sneaks up on him, even though it's a giant fucking crab. He's just like, ah, and the claw. You see the claw come and get him.
Right.
There's a scene where the crab raids their cabin or whatever the fuck, and destroys their radio equipment, and they're like, look, this cathode tube has been neatly sliced in half. I'm like, how the fuck would this giant crab with claws fucking as big as my arms possibly slice a little tiny cathode tube or whatever the fuck it is neatly in half? No fucking way he could do that. Totally ridiculous.
Smash up equipment, dude. Don't have him like surgical precision cut the cord.
Like, why did they? There was no reason to like make it like, oh, he's surgically like no, he didn't. It's stupid.
He did net surgery on the electronics.
There was a bit of dialogue at one point where one of the scientists was like, the female was like, surely you don't want to capture it for science, and then the guy's like, no, of course not. But don't you want to capture it so we can study it? It's like, that's capturing it for science. What the fuck? That's things that you just, what? That was great. I wrote down the words Pineapple Joe, but I have no idea why. I don't know what.
Pineapple Joe?
Yeah, I wrote down Pineapple Joe. I don't know what the fuck that has to do with anything, but I guess it's stuck in my mind at the time.
Maybe you were just going insane slowly.
I think I might have been. Because the next thing I wrote was literally just shit makes no sense. So that was a few of the little things I had written from my notes here.
I was writing my favorite lines, and this one stood out to me. So you have wounded me, and I must grow a new claw. Well and good, for I can do it in a day. But will you grow new lives when I have taken yours from you?
Yeah, Hular's definitely a badass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a cool
definitely
motherfucker.
he's pretty awesome.
Oh, dude, Hular makes this fucking movie. I mean, like, look, the Terror, everything the Terror is, where it's like I mean, look, both the plots of these, where it's like, yeah, whatever. But like, Hular makes this movie to me. I fucking loved watching this one. Like when I watched this one the first time, I was like, I don't really know what to expect from this. Like, I have an idea, it's gonna be campy. But I just loved Hular. I love the fucking luring the people and kind of like that most dangerous game feel, where it's like you kind of have the smarter hunter hunting all these people and making the island smaller and luring them in and tricking them, and I just love that. I love all the shit that he fucking does in the movie. And he's just over the top, and it's just like this zany fucking character. Like, it's one of those B movie fans where it definitely transcends so bad that it's good. It's definitely good.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think TJ had a harder time than both.
Yeah, I was not as much of a fan of this as you guys, I think.
I fucking love this movie, dude.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I could take or leave, but this fucking movie is great.
See, I would rather watch The Terror again than watch this again.
Really? Well, I watched both twice, that I can tell you. 2 times watching Attack of the Crab Monsters, definitely enjoyable. The Terror both times was like fighting to stay awake.
Yeah, I had to watch it them twice a piece to do all the shit.
I only watched them once a piece, but
you piece of shit.
The crab, the Attack of the Crab Monsters. I thought it was pretty cool towards the end, but there was a long slog through a lot of it. But
has a very abrupt ending too.
I appreciate that though. I appreciate that both of these movies end right when they need to end. I will give them that. The fucking Terror, of course, wraps up. She Oh, she melted. The end. You're fucked, or you're not fucked, whatever the case may be. And then this one, it's like, okay, we killed the crab monster. The end. There's like the briefest descending action, I guess you could ever fucking imagine, where I think she kind of just turns to this is her and some dude that's left at the end, and she turns. It was like, he gave his life for us because the other guy sacrificed himself to kill the crab monster, and he's like, yes, or I know.
He
or
says, I
something
know,
like
and
that.
then the credits roll.
And then it's just the end. That's just like, okay, over, done.
Like, who are dead?
Hula's
Human-
dead. Crab
human
monster's
wins.
dead. Humans win. The end. It's just
But
like,
that's how Corman sold people on this. It was like Terror Vision or whatever. Like this was a double feature. This was like, you're getting 2 fucking movies. And this one was paired with my notes here says Not of This Earth, which I have not seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
we should have watched it with its. We should have watched it with its companion movie, man.
But this movie made big money. I know you guys talked. I know in the document there was the budget. Did you guys talk about how much money the movie made?
No,
No.
go ahead. Let us know.
$1 million.
So that's
Cool.
pretty good. I mean, they basically doubled up their. Well, no.
No,
that's
because
1
remember,
million
you
in
got to fucking account for inflation, because it was 70,000, right?
Yeah.
That they spent.
And they made
$70,000 budget,
$1,000,000,
made $1 million.
$1954.
I don't know what that equivalent is today, but it's a pretty good return on investment. I mean, that means you fucking more than 10 times your money, probably something like 12 times.
People
13
liked
times.
this.
I actually have the same from Corman talking about it. This was the most successful of all early low budget horror movies. I think its success had to do with the wildness of the title, which I admit is pretty off the wall. However, I do think a lot of its popularity had to do with the construction of the plot line. I've always believed that in horror and science fiction films, too much time is usually spent explaining the characters in depth and developing various subplots. Genre audiences really come to these movies for their science fiction elements of their or their shock value. There's more to that, but I'll just read that.
I mean, that sounds like something Roger Corman would say. I think that audiences are willing to deal with complicated storylines and stuff like that and characters when they're done well, but I don't think Roger Corman is actually capable of doing those things. So yeah, it probably is wise for him to lean heavily into like, here's a crab monster. Uh-oh, it's crazy. Uh-oh, we killed it. Okay, the end. Bye.
The Terror, I don't feel if I was watching as a double feature, that'd be like this one delivers. Attack of the fucking Crab Monsters delivers on its fucking on its premise. You see the title and it delivers.
Yeah, people are attacked by a crab monster. I mean, what?
So what was the name of the movie
what
you
else
said
do
it
you
was
fucking
paired
want?
with? Not of This Earth?
Not of This Earth.
I want to see if I can find like a trailer for that,
Not of
so I can
Earth.
kind of get an idea of the double feature. Not of This Earth, 1957. Is that the right one?
Yes, correct.
All right.
The storyline concerns the attempts by extraterrestrial humanoid to surreptitiously secure the blood of humans and to test it on himself as a treatment for a fatal blood disorder, which is ravaging the population of his home planet, Divana.
Oh, this is the whole
I
movie.
see.
That's just the whole movie. I guess we could check out a few scenes. Let's see, maybe like some towards the end here.
Think of it
Oh,
under
look,
the same roof with
science.
that monster. Mr. Johnson is no monster.
Sweet. It's an umbrella.
He's the fucking
Alien umbrella.
The killer umbrella. It comes for you.
That is one thing that happens in Attack of the Crab Monster too. A lot. There's a lot of like misuse of scientific equipment. Like I remember at one point a dude picks up a microscope and he's like looking through it like a telescope and shit.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah. And
I'll think
he hands it to the girl. He hands it to like the chick and he's like, "Here, take a look at this." And she like puts her eye in it and holds it up like it's a telescope and not a microscope.
We're
Well,
scientists. Look into the scientifigraph.
Yeah. So what was good about this movie? I mean, we've been talking a little bit about it.
What was
there
good
was so
about
much-
it? So go ahead.
Oh man, there was so much good about it. Number one, when you go into a movie, a lot of movies will fucking jerk you off, especially horror movies. Like they'll be like the crab monster, the crab monster, the crab monster, and there's never a payoff. There's a total payoff in this one. It definitely ends with that. It's short. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of expository dialogue and bullshit like that, but it doesn't linger. Roger Corman knows what he has with this thing. He knows it's paired with another fucking movie, and it gets down to fucking business.
I will
That's why I
say
feel-
too, looking at the actual size of this crab, that they did a pretty good job shooting it to look bigger. Because it definitely looks bigger in the movie than it does here. So they did a pretty good job making it look like it was considerably more sizable than what you see.
There
in
were
this,
multiple.
image
There
here.
were a couple of these crabs that they built.
Yeah.
Of varying sizes, and then there were a couple of claw prosthetics that were not connected to the actual puppet that were built, so that people could be grabbed by the claw. But yeah, he definitely changes sizes if you actually look at the production photos like this. This is a smaller one for sure.
As far as the things I enjoyed about this movie, I like the crab monster. I mean, it looks cheesy, but it's kind of cool. And I gotta say, once again, just like I said with the Terror, like I feel like there's actually a pretty good movie somewhere in here. Like the idea of a crab monster that eats your brain and then your personality somehow lives inside of it, but now services the dominant personality of the monster itself is a pretty cool concept, especially for the fucking 50s. I don't know if Corman stole that from somewhere else, or if some writer that he was working with came up with it, or where this script came from, or if there was some kind of precedent for that kind of monster somewhere in the past. But pretty cool concept.
Well, basically, this is written by a guy named Charles B. Griffith.
Okay.
He wrote a lot of Roger Corman's films, and it was pretty much like Corman gave him like an outline, like crab monsters, and he kind of came up with the story from there.
Right. So I think he actually brought some pretty unique and interesting elements to a movie that really, like, I've seen a lot of fucking these old 50s monster movies where it's just like the monster is just, like they could have easily just made this, it's another crab monster. It's a crab monster. It fucking attacks. It's like just a mindless fucking killing beast. But they fucking decided to do some crazy shit with it and go in some like crazy different directions and add some layers of fucking complexity to it that, I thought made it kind of stand out from the crowd as far as these genre movies go. Now, as far as the monster effects go, there's definitely movies from this era with better monster effects than the crab monsters. But
it had its charm.
It did. Like the famous movie about the giant ants, Them. They still look goofy by modern standards, but they hold up a lot better than this crab monster does. And then of course like Godzilla and stuff like that around the same year as well.
Well, you know what? I'll take fucking mediocre practical effects over fucking shitty CGI any day of the week. At least it's present physically, so the actors are actually reacting to something. Like the scene where it's like, what's that noise? And they go in there and that giant claw prosthetic attacks him. You can sense it's in the room when he's really trying to get away from it. If it was done today, it'd be some crappy CGI.
Sorry, I was just trying to find an example of the ants from Them.
Oh, sure. But yeah, but I mean, there's more of a physicality to practical effects. And even if they're not done as good as they could have been at the time, it still lends something more to the film.
So, yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing, that I would add on top of that, probably. I liked looking at the leading lady's big fat ass.
It was nice.
That was nice.
Well, that's always a part of it.
I have to admit, I was surprised to see a bitch that thick in that kind of fucking flick, man.
Thick in that flick.
So this is a movie from like pretty much the exact same year to kind of give you an idea of like, this is obviously a trailer, but you can kind of see some of the ants in here.
Yeah, Attack of the Crab Monsters was 57. When was this done?
This is 54.
50. So actually, this predates it.
Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, you can see
ants.
those ants are pretty dope, honestly. I mean, like they move pretty well. You can still obviously tell that they're fucking, animatronic or whatever the fuck. But like they're pretty cool. They got more like reticulating head motions and stuff. They're just better puppets. There's some pretty cool scenes of the ants like being lit on fire. I think honestly, this movie probably did a lot to inspire Paul's favorite movie, Aliens, because you kind of have a similar thing of like the military taking on this insectile colony of man-eating monsters that kind of have that same insect colony structure. Of course, they're them being ants.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of the same like kind of claustrophobic, like we're stuck in the tunnels, where are the ants, and all this other stuff. And of course, it's because it's the 1950s. It's all a fucking allegory for the evils of communism and shit.
Of course.
You know, at least Roger Corman didn't put hackneyed political subplots into this movie.
I do this for the USSR.
I mean, you know, there was the, you know, what have we done with the radiation kind of, that was
Right.
a political point.
I
back then.
guess you're right. You know, there was kind of maybe like a little bit of a like anti-nuclear message, like, should we be tampering with the forces of nature in this way?
But it's really not explored in the movie.
Right. It's kind of, I mean, it's the nuclear stuff is kind of a MacGuffin. If there's any sort of political message there, it's maybe more of a, you know, I don't know. I don't want to try to delve into the psyche of Roger Corman, but I don't think he was trying to make any sort of profound statement with this one.
Well, I mean, no, I don't think so.
I think he was just trying to make, you know, $1,000 into $10,000 over and over again.
Yeah, and obviously this is one of his great successes. I don't know if this is the biggest hit he ever had or anything.
I mean, 70,000 in, $1 million out in the 50s. That's pretty fucking good, dude.
That's great. I mean, it's crazy good. But
I mean, you have to remember there wasn't wide theatrical releases. These films were taken on.
Yeah, they had to
tours.
tour
I mean,
the country and stuff.
Yeah, like you had to pack houses to get this. I mean, like people all across this country fucking flock to these theaters to see this double feature.
Oh yeah.
Those are our two movies, I guess. Unless you guys have got something that
I'm
itching
trying
to add here at the very end.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to see what if you know, I was trying to figure out what Roger Corman's biggest actual hits were, but doesn't seem like that's easy information to come by. People just want to talk about the ones they like the best and stuff.
Well, and budgets on his film too are kind of hit and miss.
Right, of course.
It's just not available for a lot of his movies. So
yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of
who knows what his return was on a lot of these films.
I mean, you know, we know that he had a habit of you know, oh, we got a few days left with these actors in this location. Let's fucking throw another movie out there together real quick. So, you know,
like I don't think Roger Corman lost a lot of money. I'm sure there's ones that did lose money, but I don't think he lost a lot of money in the sense, especially during this time period. Because I mean, look, if you can make some for $50,000 and make $200,000, you made a fucking massive profit. He wasn't paying these actors a bunch of money. He wasn't spending a bunch of money in the production. He was spending the bare minimum to make his fucking movie.
I mean, let's not forget too that Roger Corman actually did have his fingers in some like legitimate like big budget Hollywood productions here and there too.
For sure.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Can't take
like
that away from him.
he had some finger. He had some of the. He was I think one of the producers or something of Silence of the Lambs and some stuff like that. You know. And obviously,
he definitely had some money to spread around for production costs.
Oh yeah, so. Like if he felt like a movie was going to do well, he'd put a stake in it, like, you know. And I mean, look, Roger Corman was a pretty badass motherfucker. I don't really care for either of these movies too much, but you know, I like schlock, and these are some great examples of like some early kind of schlock. But I think the kind of schlock I like kind of happened more in like the late 60s through like the early 80s. I would even say into the late 80s a little bit. But I like that 70s style schlock and shit. You know what movie I watched last night? We might want to do a fucking one of these on this series, honestly. I watched Death Wish 3 last night.
Oh yeah, Death Wish.
Death Wish 3. I'd never seen it before. I knew its reputation, and I know there's 5 of these fucking Death Wish movies. The first one was actually kind of a real movie. I've never seen the second one or the third or the fourth or fifth one, but I decided, like, yeah, let's check out Death Wish 3 because it kind of had a reputation for me, where people were talking about like, this is the one that's like balls to the wall crazy, and I got to say it really delivered on that premise. Oh, and you get to see Counselor Troy's titties in it. So
whoa,
that was kind of cool.
Right. Sold.
Marina Sirtis is in it, and there's a scene where you get to see her titties, and you know, it's pretty cool. Oh, and she's also playing like I guess an Italian woman or a Spanish woman. I don't know which, but she's like really dark. It's like, I don't know if they put like her in brown face or if she just got really tan for the role, but it was kind of weird. Cool. But yeah, you get to see Marina Sirtis titties, and there's some other titties strewn here and there too. And
he's back in New York, bringing justice to the streets.
Anyway, yeah, I thought maybe we might want to consider doing one of these on that series, but whatever. I guess we'll see if the fans like it. You know, you can leave a comment down below if you think maybe that's a good idea. Cool. But you know, of course, we still got to take our trip down Steelmanville Road.
Oh man, oh, my eyeballs hurt so bad.
Scotty, you
dude,
need to stop being
some,
resistant. We need to go down Steelmanville Road.
Oh, dude, I promised some asshole patrons like I hate Scotty and I hate him because you will never let us go down Steelmanville Road. So I made him a promise that I'll never go down Steelmanville Road. So it's gonna be very difficult because now I have some asshole that I want to fuck over as well.
We're gonna have to strap you in like fucking Alex DeLarge and Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah.
Pry your eyelids open.
We are gonna go down the. I think that whenever quarantine fucking wraps up, we should celebrate by taking a trip down Steelmanville Road.
I don't think so.
I think
It's
we
a
should.
dark and twisted road.
All right. Thank you everybody for watching. Let us know if you have some ideas for future ones of these. I can't promise we'll listen, but I mean, we'll consider it. Let me know what you guys think about the Death Wish thing. Let us know about whether you want us to take that Steelmanville Road trip. And if you guys have any terrible schlocky movies that you'd like us to take a look at, or even some mainstream shit that maybe is just really bad, let us know. And we will do our due diligence and check it out.